Hey, friends and family, thanks for tuning in to tonight's Thursday Night Thought. Tonight's thought comes to you from the beautiful state of Arizona, where I'm sitting here and looking out on the most beautiful sunset and thinking of all of you. It is Thanksgiving. It's a beautiful day, and so many of you are probably spending time with your family and loved ones, and I'm just wishing you a beautiful Thanksgiving today and hope that you are spending this day giving thanks for all the things in your life. And I also want to bring in this week's message, because this week's message was an incredible message. And this week's message was all about the gifts that we've been given and how it is that we can step into our purpose, our calling, our gifts and our talents and share those with one another. And tonight I want to share with you something that happened to me last week that was a massive revelation. And this is an incredible story. I encourage you to share this with anyone who you feel could need some encouragement and how to step into their gifts and talents and stepping into our purpose. And so last week, I like to start off this broadcast by recapping what last week's message was. And last week's message was, do not get caught in right or wrong. For those events and people that challenge you are strengthening your spiritual muscles. This growth and development is necessary to sustain your next level of divine experience in this world. Love. For love is the most powerful force, and in order to encounter this love, be open to it, ready to receive it, and be changed by it, takes tremendous preparation. So I'm going to tie in last week's message and this week's message about doing the work and sharing our gifts and talents, and how this not getting caught in right or wrong was one of the biggest revelations for me. So back in 2010, I began working with a coach. She was an amazing woman, and it was really an incredible experience working with a coach and having that person that really provides space for you to find your hidden gifts and talents. And my work with her was completely transformational. It allowed me to find these hidden gifts and talents within myself. In fact, it was very much the platform of the novel that I wrote and the inspiration that I had in working with this woman and her work and the work that I did. And along our journey together as teacher and student, there came a day where I was given a very clear message that I was to no longer work with this coach in my life. And some of you may remember the story that I shared back in 2014 about a moth. And sometimes, I believe that life gives us messages all day long. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing these Thursday night thoughts, because I pay attention to my life. I pay attention to the things that are being brought into my life. And when we do that, there are very, very clear messages that direct us on our path, even though inside we may not be feeling that we're ready for those changes or that we're ready to make those steps. Life may be presenting these things for us. And so in this story, what ended up happening is I was in my bedroom one day and I had my window slightly open, and I looked over at my window and I saw this moth, and I thought it was a butterfly at first, but when I walked closer to the window, I realized it was a moth, and it was trapped between the screen of my window and then the window pane, the glass. And I had this idea that I needed to get this moth out from behind the window and out onto my balcony and let it go and let it be free, right? It was trapped. So I went over to the window and I grabbed a piece of paper, and my thought was this moth would just climb onto the piece of paper and then I would take it outside and it would be free. But it was a very different experience than that. The moment I put the paper into the window, the moth went crazy and was trying to go in different directions. And I had to really intently put energy into the experience and say, moth, climb on to this piece of paper. I'm going to set you free. And the moth finally, with enough intention and love, crawled on to the piece of paper. And at this point, I knew I was in a spiritual experience. The material and the spiritual was connected. And this moth, then I pulled it out from underneath the glass and I walked it out onto my balcony. And I remember walking outside and being like, okay, you're free, fly away now, go, go, go. And the moth was seriously clinging on to this piece of paper. It was not going to let go. So I set the piece of paper down on the top of my balcony and I just sat there and I looked at the moth like, what's your deal? Like, go, be free. You're outside now. You can fly. And it was at that moment that I realized life was sending me a message about myself. And I heard the words, this piece of paper did not set you free. It was your desire to be outside, that the piece of paper appeared and then took you outside to be free. And I realized that I was talking to a part of myself. I realized that this was that moment where it was time to let go of my coach, and it was time for me to be free and share my gifts and talents and all of the things that I learned from her amazing teaching. But as I sat there and had this revelation, I honestly thought the moth was going to fly away. I thought the moth was going to get the message and be free. But the moth didn't. The moth sat on that piece of paper, and I found myself getting very angry. And I almost started yelling at the moth. And that's when I realized there's a very hard transition when you have put someone on a pedestal, or you have done work with someone that has made a major impact in your life. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's, something in your work, maybe something that you have really idealized this person in your life, and you wonder if you can be free because they've made such a massive impact. And it wasn't until the moth finally crawled off the piece of paper when my heart kind of just settled into a place of peace. So I noticed that my energy was translating in this experience, that the moth was still clinging when I was still angry, when I was still trying to figure it all out. But the moment I surrendered and just said, you know what? When you're meant to be free, you'll be free. And I just believed it. And eventually the moth crawled off the piece of paper, and then the moth eventually lifted off from the balcony and flew off into the sun. And I took a picture of it, and it was such an incredible and inspirational moment for me because I saw my future. Now that was back in 2014. I didn't actually make the break from my coach until 2015. And then I experienced a very dark night of the soul in the years of 2015 and 2016 as I found my voice, as I found my path. And where I want to bring this all together with the messages that have come in the last week and then this week is that this last week I ended up having a healing session with a woman, and I felt very called to heal this experience between my coach and I, because how do you make the shift from student to teacher? Because now I'm being called to share my work. Now I'm being called to share my gifts and talents that I had idolized for so many years in somebody else. And that's a shift. And in many ways, I believe that dark night of the soul was like being a caterpillar in its cocoon and not knowing what's happening, questioning maybe everything that's going on because of this new transformation that's happening, and desiring it on some level so strongly to share my gifts and talents, but not really knowing how to do that. So I had this idea, I had this message again last week that I was going to go in for this healing transmission and heal this relationship between the two of us, because really, emotionally and mentally, I was still very connected. I was still clinging to that ledge, right? And I went in for this transmission, and the woman told me, she said, what you've done is you have put this woman on a pedestal. You have put her in such a place that you are honoring her and idealizing her and giving her all the credit for the work that you did. You see, a good teacher and a good coach will allow the student to make the discoveries within themselves. We don't have the answers. The coach isn't supposed to give you the answers. The coach is to drive you to go deeper and encourage you to go deeper, to find those answers within ourselves. And that is the work that I did with her. But I, as a person, had idealized her and put her on this pedestal. And so during this session, the healer looked at me and said, it's time to put God on that pedestal. Your work, your gifts and talents, your greater purpose was given to you by God. It is your work here in this world. And no matter what your teacher taught you, that's your teaching. You did the work. And this was one of the most beautiful gifts I had ever received, because it was a moment of realizing that, yes, I did the work to get to my deepest truths. But in the past few months, I had had some issues because I had been looking at my teacher and realizing that there were a lot of things where we aren't alike. There were a lot of things where we are very different in the way that we taught, the way that we shared our gifts and talents. And so I'd been struggling with making that break, right? And in this healing transmission, the other part that came through is that it wasn't my teacher that wasn't allowing the break. It was actually the fact that just as in this world we have angels that look over us, just as in this world that we get messages that guide us, there are also dark forces in this world that know us better than we know ourselves, and that they are working to bring people in to trap us in a place of disempowerment. Because if we feel disempowered, we no longer have the power to make transformation in this world with love and compassion and the gifts and the talents and everything it is that we've been given. So these shadows actually used these people in my life to put me in a place of disempowerment where I wasn't feeling like I could be the teacher and that I had to stay in a certain level or a certain label or whatever it might be. Have you had that happen before? What was so incredible about this revelation was that if we're aware that our shadows do this, then we don't blame. It's not right or wrong about the person. We can get out of that trap that we talked about last week. We can get out of that right and wrong and realize that everything is working to build those spiritual muscles in our life. And that was an incredible gift. Those two things, knowing that I didn't have to judge the situation. I didn't have to judge my teacher. And do you know that in that moment, for the first time, I felt free. I felt free to be who I am, to share my teaching, to share my gifts and talents. And I feel that disconnection from the ledge of the balcony. And isn't it beautiful that life is so tied together that way? So I encourage you, if you've ever been in a situation where you are wanting to share your gifts and talents, the message this week is so strong. And the message is this: you have been given the gifts of will, inspiration, passion, and courage to achieve your goals. Though you may not see the outward signs of growth right now, trust that your work is not in vain. Therefore, use your gifts with confidence and gratitude. Your gifts require action, and the time to apply them is now. Isn't that a beautiful message for all of us who are stepping into those greater parts of ourselves, for all of us who are utilizing our gifts and talents and getting out there and making a difference and contributing in this world? The time to take action is now. And if just one of us opens our heart and can feel that freedom, then we can transmute that for one another. And that's my gift to you this week. That's my gift to myself. That's something that I am so thankful for, because it has taken tremendous preparation to get to that level. So wherever you are at on your journey, I pray that this story will encourage and inspire you. And I am so thankful for you and thankful for you allowing me to share my messages in such a space of love and encouragement. Me finding my voice has been a journey, and you have been such a huge part of it. And I am grateful, because I am ready to share my gifts and talents as a teacher in this world. And just by speaking this truth, again, I will be able to manifest my truth. So whatever those goals are, whatever it is you're aiming for, wherever it is you are in your own path, I just want to encourage you to go after it. Take action this week. The universe is opening up. One of the other limiting beliefs that came to me this week was, oh my gosh, we're headed into a retrograde. And it's so funny, because if you really understand our planets, we've been in retrograde. We've had all kinds of things going on in our planets. And actually, the truth is, it's time to take action. We are being blessed, and we are being guided, and we are being supported on every level. And those are the messages that are coming in for me this week. So I just had to share that with you. And I hope you are having a beautiful day. And I hope you go to bed tonight thankful for everything it is that you have in your lives, and for all the ways that we are called to work for God in this world, sharing our gifts and talents. Thank you. And I'm going to go ahead. I see a ton of messages. I see a ton of you have joined since we're here live. Oh my goodness, you guys are amazing. Happy Thanksgiving. I am thankful to still be alive on this journey we call life. Amen, Scott Harden. Amen. This is an incredible life. Oh my goodness, Suhail, so wonderful to see you. It's what, 1 o'clock, 1 a.m. your time in the UK? Striving to use my gifts to all with a love-filled heart. Aren't we all? And isn't that the greatest part of this experience? That I believe that's where we connect in so many levels. And it's so beautiful. I see so many of you have joined. Happy Thanksgiving, AJ. Fantastic job tonight. Thank you, John. Thank you. This was a really powerful week for me. And I pray the same power is alive in your life. And I love watching what it is you're doing in this world. And so many of you. For some reason, my phone doesn't allow me to see all of your beautiful comments, but I promise as soon as I end this transmission, I will get to those. And again, I am just wishing you a beautiful Thanksgiving, and I am so thankful for this opportunity to spend time with you and share these messages. And I look forward to sharing our next Thursday night thought together.